Just days after he was sworn in as Attorney General, Todd Blanch is already cracking down on corrupt Democrats like never before. All across the country, we have multiple arrests of high-profile Democrat politicians and operatives in separate corruption schemes, all breaking within days of each other. Make sure to stick them to the very end of this video because we're going to see how these crooked politicians are finally coming to justice in what is nothing short of a full-blown reckoning for the modern Democrat machine. Hey gang, it's me, Dr. Steve, your patron professor, here to help you make sense of the madness with breaking news and analysis you're not going to get anywhere else. So make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. Also, there's a lot hitting you every single day, and you don't have time to chase down every headline. That's my job. My Patriot Alerts break down what actually matters and what it means for your family in just a few quick updates. If that sounds like peace of mind, tap the link below. It takes 60 seconds to join, and it's free. All right, so it's happening. It does appear that the days of reckoning are being unleashed on the corruption inside the Democrat Party. Let's start with the breaking news on Heidi Byrick. She's the former head of the ultra-liberal Southern Poverty Law Center's so-called intelligence project. She was just arrested in California. According to federal prosecutors, Byrick helped oversee a scheme where SPLC donor money was funneled into bank accounts opened under completely fictitious company names, so shell companies as they're called, and ended up in the pockets. These funds through these companies ended up in the pockets of, I kid you not, KKK Klansmen, neo-Nazis, Aryan Nation bikers, American Nazi affiliates, and the very organizers of the 2017 Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville. Do you remember this? This broke just a couple of months ago. The SPLC, which supposedly exists to combat racism, was actually funding it. They were actually funding the very racist groups they claimed to be fighting, and they were doing it through these fake set-up shell companies so that the money couldn't be traced directly back to them. So this was blatantly intentional. Well, the first domino in that corrupt scheme has fallen. It turns out that this woman, Byrick, was not only involved in funneling money to organizations like the KKK, but prosecutors say that she actually shared a joint bank account with a paid informant, an informant who had infiltrated the neo-Nazi National Alliance. And get this, she was allegedly living with him. She was romantically involved with him, all the while roughly $140,000 in donor funds moved through their shared accounts between 2015 and 2021. That same informant reportedly received over $1 million total from the SPLC since 2007. And it doesn't stop there. The informant Byrick was allegedly involved with is accused of breaking into the headquarters of a white supremacist organization and stealing 25 boxes of documents. Those stolen documents reportedly became the basis for a splashy 2015 Hate Watch article published by SPLC, written by none other than Byrick herself. And when the burglary needed a fall guy, prosecutors say that the SPLC paid a second informant about $6,000 just to take the blame and keep the real source hidden. So this is the first indictment involved in holding the ultra-left SPLC accountable for literally fabricating racism to the tune of millions of dollars to justify their pathetic existence. Now let's go to Hawaii, where things just went from bad to catastrophic for one of their major Democrat power players. Hawaii's lieutenant governor, you heard that right, their lieutenant governor, Sylvia Luke, the second highest official in the entire state. She was just indicted on 12 felony counts, including criminal conspiracy to commit bribery. According to prosecutors, back in January of 2022, Luke sat down for a private dinner in a Honolulu steak with businessman Toby Solidum. Now, according to the grand jury, before dessert even arrived, Solidum handed her 2 checks totaling $10,000, with a promise of $70,000 more in campaign contributions to come. 1 month later, her powerful House Finance Committee helped move a bill approving a staggering $170 million in COVID relief funds tied directly to the testing contracts Solidum wanted. Solidum, meanwhile, allegedly walked away with millions from those same COVID testing contracts. And when investigators started closing in, he didn't stick around to face the music. He liquidated his assets and he fled to the Philippines, where he remains a fugitive to this day with a no bail warrant out for his arrest. But Luke wasn't operating alone here. 4 other Hawaii officials, including Solidum, have all been indicted as part of the same scandal, and they're all Democrats. We're talking a former State Department of Human Services director, a state airports administrator accused of lying to federal investigators, and even Luke's own campaign treasurer accused of falsifying records to hide illegal contributions. So 5 officials, 1 fugitive overseas, and a trial that's going to expose exactly how deep this rot goes into Hawaii's Democrat-dominated government. And then finally, let's go back to California, to Oakland, where Democrat corruption reached an entirely different level. Former Oakland Mayor Sheng Tao, once celebrated as the first Hmong American mayor of a major U.S. city, she's now facing federal bribery, conspiracy, and honest services fraud charges that could put her behind bars for up to, get this, 95 years. According to federal prosecutors, the scheme started before she even won her election. The Duong family, who run California Waste Solutions and control Oakland's massive recycling contract, allegedly poured $95,000 into attack mailers against Tao's opponents, all in exchange for promises that Tao would extend the recycling contract, buy housing units from their shipping container company, and even install a city official of their own choosing. And it gets worse. Prosecutors say Tao's longtime partner, Andre Jones, was promised roughly $300,000 through what's called a no-show job, a job where he didn't actually have to work, right, like Hunter Biden with Burisma, just to collect the check. And when that wasn't enough to qualify for a home lease, prosecutors alleged the whole scheme fabricated a fake $150,000 job at a cannabis consulting business run by Tao's own sister. So yet another Democrat orchestrated pay-to-play scheme here, blatant, and they got caught. Now, you'll notice you're not hearing a word about this in the legacy media, right? Imagine if all these arrests involve Republicans. I mean, it'd be on the front page of every major legacy media outlet. And that's, of course, because the media is more interested in steering perception instead of simply reporting facts. Now, the good news is that millions are realizing that our news is broken, but they don't know where to turn for reliable headlines. Luckily, there's a solution that helps you see exactly what's being emphasized, ignored, or spun. Ground News pulls headlines from over 50,000 news sources and makes it easier to understand what's actually happening. I mean, you could see the political bias of each outlet, insights like reliability and outlet ownership, and how coverage breaks down across the spectrum. That's why over 1 million people have downloaded Ground News. Check it out for yourself at ground.news/Steve. Now, my favorite feature is the blind spot feed. It shows you which stories are blowing up on one side of the aisle but barely mentioned on the other. It's the clearest way to see media bias in action. So, for example, here's a story completely ignored by the left. President Trump has reportedly told donors that J.D. Vance will indeed be his successor. I mean, the media can't stomach that, so they're ignoring it. Now, of course, the right has its blind spots too, but now you'll know. With every story, Ground News shows you the entire spectrum of who's reporting from left, right, and center, how reliable each source is, and who owns each outlet. It's everything the corporate press doesn't want you to see. Right now, you can get 40% off the Vantage plan, which gives you unlimited access to all the features that I personally use for about $5 a month. Just visit ground.news/Steve, click the link in the description, or scan the QR code. That's ground.news/Steve. The re-election of Donald J. Trump in November 2024 signaled unequivocally that the vast majority of the American people have had it with our insulated political class. They were done with the days our elite could be shielded from real electoral or institutional consequences. The people wanted an end to the self-enrichment that comes from corruption going unpunished. Trump was elected, at least in part, precisely to be that enforcer. And Todd Blanch, our new Attorney General, is wasting no time in bringing corrupt Democrats to accountability. Since Blanch took over as Attorney General some months back, the DOJ has been aggressively cracking down on leftists. In March, the DOJ quietly assembled a specialized task force, Joint Task Force Vanguard, staffed by organized crime and terrorism prosecutors specifically to target left-wing political networks reporting directly to Blanch under a national security directive. In April, the department's weaponization working group issued findings accusing the Biden DOJ of politically selective prosecutions, reversing years of what conservatives have viewed as one-sided enforcement. Now, of course, critics call this retaliatory. Civil rights groups have accused Blanch of turning the DOJ into an instrument of personal rage and citing the SPLC case, ironically, and the persecution of figures like James Comey as evidence. But for conservatives who spent a decade watching the DOJ decline to touch entities like the SPLC despite mounting complaints, this looks less like weaponization and more like much-needed accountability finally catching up, an overdue correction after years of institutional immunity for the most protected and precious organizations. Bottom line, institutions dominated by Democrats that quietly exploited weak oversight for years are now facing the delayed reckoning that follows when trust finally runs out and investigators catch up to behavior that's been priced in as consequence-free by our liberal elites for far too long. The good news is that the good guys are indeed catching up. Arrest after arrest, indictment after indictment, the accountability so many of us have waited years to see is finally arriving. The swamp doesn't get drained overnight, but brick by brick, indictment by indictment, it is happening right in front of our very eyes. Before I was ever on your screen, I was your professor. Now I'm stepping back into the classroom live for the first time in years to teach Civcosm myself. This is the closest you'll get to sitting in my class. Get on the masterclass waitlist below.